Florida Crossroads is produced with support from the Florida Department of Education.
Mosquitoes don't know what county line is. They don't know political boundaries. They don't know political holidays. That's why we work a lot of 7 days a week here, too.
The most important thing, as I mentioned, that people can do to protect themselves is to not be bitten by mosquitoes.
Our end goal is to develop an early warning system so that we can prevent large numbers of illnesses.
Welcome to Florida Crossroads. I'm Beth Switzer. Health officials are urging Floridians to prepare for an increase in West Nile virus cases. The potentially deadly virus is spread by mosquitoes, which breed in standing water. In this edition of Florida Crossroads, producer Jody Santiago shows us how state and local governments are working together to control and prevent mosquito-borne illnesses. And she explains how we can all get involved in preventing these diseases from spreading.
West Nile virus first appeared in the United States in 1999, and as of 2002 the virus had spread to 40 states stretching from New York to California. In that same year, the Centers for Disease Control reported more than 4,100 cases in humans and 284 deaths. In Florida, 28 people were afflicted with the virus and 2 died. By the spring of 2003, health officials in Florida were predicting that a high number of West Nile cases would appear in the Sunshine State. However, only time will tell how much damage will be inflicted by the virus. Each year, millions of people come to Florida to soak up the sunshine and enjoy the pristine beaches. However, the waters are not always clear or inviting. Stagnant water is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. These pools are found in swamps, in parks, neighborhoods, and even backyards. And it's not just the various pools of water that allow mosquitoes to thrive in Florida. The mild winters allow the insects to survive and breed nearly year-round. Mosquitoes are more than a slight annoyance with a nasty bite. They can spread deadly diseases such as West Nile virus. West Nile is a form of encephalitis or inflammation of the brain. Less than 1% of humans infected will develop severe symptoms, which include convulsions, paralysis, and coma. People with weakened immune systems are most at risk. Now, these similar symptoms also appear in animals. There are vaccinations to prevent horses from getting the virus. However, none exist for humans. Additionally, there is no special therapy for treating humans infected with the virus. West Nile appeared in Florida in 2001. The state was prepared to handle the disease in both the human and animal population because it had dealt with other mosquito-borne viruses. There are a number of state agencies conducting research involving mosquitoes and the diseases they cause. Since West Nile is a mosquito-borne virus commonly detected in birds, we first visit a research facility in Northwest Florida charged with several responsibilities, including tracking birds. FARIC, the Public Health and Entomology and Research and Education Center, studies infected birds and mosquitoes. Located in Panama City, the center tests pesticides to kill larvicides or baby mosquitoes.
All of these were filling.
Raises mosquitoes to study various insect repellents. And analyzes various mosquito trapping systems on the consumer market. Then there is work in the field. This morning, Eric Cope, a lab technician, will inspect mosquitoes and birds. Any signs of West Nile virus from them will help health officials prepare for and prevent further spread of the disease.
We're actually capturing the wild birds. We feed them, the wild bird seed to attract them. Once we have birds in the cage, we take blood samples from them. Bleeding the birds and banding the bird helps us keep track of where they're at and if they come back positive or negative after we send off the sample to Tampa.
Throughout the year, FARIC sets up bird traps at various locations in Washington County. The traps are laid out where birds normally congregate, yet away from the general public.
We're not really trying to keep it away from the public or, out of their eye. We're just trying to help keep down vandalism. And, some people will kind of wander in and have a tendency to mess with stuff they don't need to, but there's no real reason. We're just trying to keep vandalism down.
After he's done at this site, he drives to other remote locations to set up mosquito traps. Researchers are able to raise wild mosquitoes in the lab, but it's impossible for them to replicate all aspects of the outdoors.
We set up an MMX trap. It's also known as a pickle jar trap. It uses CO2 to attract mosquitoes. We take them back to the lab and process them and test them. The biggest catch we had was around 40,000 mosquitoes, roughly. That's a guesstimation.
By the end of the day, Cope will put up 6 mosquito traps in Washington County. If you do the numbers, in less than a week, the traps have the potential of catching up to 240,000 mosquitoes, all of which must be sorted and tested back at the laboratory.
Okay, we're back here at the lab.
Dr. John Smith will take the containers and sort the mosquitoes by species, then test them for any signs of West Nile virus, among other mosquito-borne illnesses.
We want to keep them alive because if there's a virus in them, it dies as well, and it's difficult to detect the virus by some of the assays that the state health lab uses. From here, we'll take the mosquitoes and place them in the refrigerator, primarily just for storage, because we have a bottleneck of samples coming in.
Before he can examine the mosquitoes under the microscope, Dr. Smith will place the insects in another chemical batch to paralyze them. This process preserves the insects for further inspection.
It's important to keep the mosquitoes alive and fresh because it makes it a lot easier to identify them. Once the mosquito dies, it dehydrates, shrivels up, and a lot of the characteristics that we use to identify them become very difficult to see. The characteristics that she's looking for, or the markings, are the first thing. White colored banding on the mouth part, on the legs, on the back of the mosquito.
Researchers must sort the mosquitoes into various subgroups. There are around 300 species of mosquitoes in the United States, but only about 30 are known to carry the West Nile virus in Florida. Scientists then move the mosquitoes to another setting. They place the insects into a test tube, add a grinding solution, then drop some BBs or small pellets into the tube. The elements are shaken and turned into a liquid form. The scientists insert a strip in the tube to test for West Nile virus. Each mosquito makes a difference.
A band will appear if the mosquitoes were infected with either eastern equine encephalitis, West Nile, or St. Louis encephalitis.
To help confirm the test results, a sample from the ground mosquito solution will also be sent to the State Health Laboratory in Tampa. Before we move to the State Health Laboratory, we'll explore more of the problems associated with West Nile, specifically its impact on horses. Florida ranks among the top horse breeding states in the nation. As such, ranchers naturally were interested in learning how to prevent their horses from becoming infected with West Nile. And even though West Nile is not the cause for all horse illnesses, the fear of the disease had people on alert. In the first year West Nile was detected in Florida, there were 400 reported cases in horses. Jefferson County in North Florida would become the epicenter for the virus.
He's like a stroke victim. He's just having a hard time using...
Monticello is a rural community in Jefferson County. Here, Randy Floyd is the superintendent of the Dixie Plantation in Monticello. He says he became concerned about his horses after some of them became sick. Initially, he thought his horses were infected with West Nile. Floyd says the state brought in several veterinarians to test his horses. In the end, 6 horses tested positive, not with West Nile virus, but eastern equine encephalitis, another virus also spread by mosquitoes. By the end of the summer, 1 horse died from the virus. Lloyd says it's difficult to maintain a safe environment for his horses.
Every farm you have has got water, in ponds, or so, it's not like you can go out here and pour out a water trough and stop the problem, because you got swamps around here with water in them. That's the breeding ground for these mosquitoes, and we got them, and it's probably going to be here to stay. It's just something we're going to have to live with and deal with, and hope that it don't get any worse.
But the Florida Department of Agriculture contends that although it may be difficult, there are steps to take to lessen the harm.
If you have a lake or standing water and your horses tend to stay down close to that, feed them away from that so that they would get less exposure. it's all a calculated process, and in some cases people were frustrated because they said, it's just impossible to totally prevent, and it is. But the combined effort is what allows you less risk.
The Department of Agriculture became responsible for handling potential disease outbreaks in the aftermath of Hurricane Andrew in the early 1990s. The department's mission is to prevent, mitigate, respond, and recover from any diseases caused by animals. Leroy Kaufman is a state veterinarian with the department. In addition to avoiding stagnant water, he says horses need to receive vaccinations so they can build immunity to the virus. In order to find out if horses are infected with West Nile, specimens must be taken to a laboratory for further test. The Florida Department of Health is a clearinghouse for all specimens collected in the state. Here, scientists test various items, including human and animal tissue. In this case, a researcher is testing specimens from birds.
We look for antibody development in certain birds to the virus, indicating they were recently infected with the virus, and that tells us where the virus is being transmitted. We look for virus itself in dead birds and mosquito pools. That's groups of mosquitoes collected at the same time and place to see if we can isolate or detect the virus.
Dr. Lillian Stark runs assays to confirm West Nile. Scientists must make sure that the infection is West Nile virus, not another mosquito-borne illness. Florida has maintained a testing program for a number of mosquito-borne viruses, even before reports of West Nile in the United States.
Prior to West Nile coming to the United States, funding was minimal for testing. Florida maintained a proactive program, but it was not that large. When West Nile appeared, CDC did provide additional funding, which has allowed us to get some new equipment and some staff to perform this testing. Now that it's all over with all the states requiring this support and funding, we don't know how long our special funding will last for the studies.
While the funds are available, the Department of Health can run surveillance programs to help detect West Nile. As stated earlier, one tracking program involves dead birds. If these birds test positive, the disease is present in the community.
When we get in a dead bird that's been recently deceased, and it's been submitted within 12 hours of its dying, we necropsy the bird. We cut it open, we take out a snippet of the heart tissue, and we analyze that for the presence of West Nile and other arthropod-borne viruses. The machine is homogenizing the snippet of heart tissue from the dead birds. Each of these supplies that we're using is costly. That's why we're very careful not to waste anything and to test only quality specimens.
It usually takes less than 2 weeks to complete the test. The final results are then reported to those who sent the specimen into the Bureau of Epidemiology, which in turn shares that information with other state and local governments involved in mosquito control and prevention. The Sentinel Chicken Program is another method the state uses to track West Nile. By taking and testing blood samples from chickens on a regular basis, the department can determine when the virus is in the community.
What we do is we have flocks of sentinels, the chickens, out all through the state. Every week they donate a little bit of blood, and it's sent to the laboratory where the blood is tested for antibody to the group of viruses that are related to West Nile and to the Eastern equine encephalitis virus group. Chickens will not amplify the virus and will not serve as a source for mosquitoes to become infected, so they won't spread the virus around. Our end goal is to develop an early warning system so that we can prevent large numbers of illnesses. That's the goal of public health, to prevent illness and disease.
There are 55 mosquito control districts in Florida. State and local communities pay for the operations, and Lee County in southwest Florida has the state's largest and most expensive mosquito control program. At the Lee County Mosquito Control, inspectors focus on surveillance to find out where mosquitoes are breeding. Research to help develop the best methods to kill the insects, and applying those measures to the field. At times, research takes inspectors to the skies. This morning, a crew is surveying marshland, a prime location for mosquitoes to breed. The view from above the ground can give scientists a compelling perspective.
Sometimes in the wide open areas, you don't even need to land, you can fly over and you can just see big black spots in the water, and you'll know that's mosquito larvae, but you'll have to land anyway to check out what stage they are. Don't trip.
Tommy Stewart has been an inspector with the Mosquito Control District for more than a decade.
If you walk into an area where you're too late to larvicide and you see mosquitoes coming off like by the millions, you know you've had a problem, you know that you're going to have a serious mosquito problem in the area. When we're dipping for larvae, we come up with anywhere from 20 to 300 per dip mosquito larvae.
On this day, researchers are not able to locate mosquitoes nor larvae. Depending on the weather, inspectors like Tommy Stewart survey the land on a weekly or daily basis. In addition to inspecting the marshland, scientists conduct research to develop methods to improve mosquito eradication, and the cost for spraying is broken down to a science.
It costs several $100s an hour to fly a helicopter. So if you had a product where you can fly once, put that product in the habitat, and that would be in that particular habitat for the 3 or 4 breeding cycles of a mosquito, and you wouldn't have to repeatedly come back to that habitat, it'd be a more cost-effective approach.
Dr. Richard Levy has developed a super absorbent polymer to attack mosquitoes. The idea is to develop chemicals that can be released into a certain environment over an extended period of time.
And if I add this very slowly to the breeding of the mosquito in here where there's larvae, you can see very rapidly that the water is becoming encapsulated. The mosquito larvae are being pushed down. Now mosquito larvae have to get to the interface to breathe atmospheric oxygen, and now they can't get up, and they basically are going to become encapsulated in this gel.
The superabsorbent polymer is used for killing mosquitoes breeding in water in small containers such as tires and tree holes. Then there's a task of developing an efficient manner of spraying, one with the least impact on the environment and what is most cost-efficient for taxpayers. The Florida Wind Tunnel is the only device in the state specifically designed for mosquito control and spraying.
Our goal is to define which nozzles will produce droplets in the range that we're interested in for mosquito control, which is between 10 and 30 microns. It's similar to you standing out in the fog. You won't get wet from the fog because the droplets are so small that they just drift around you. But if you're standing in the rain, they hit you. And that's the same thing with the mosquito.
This concept is important when scientists spray for mosquitoes in the air and on the ground. The spray vehicles are common sightings in the summer, the peak season for mosquitoes.
It's real relevant to have all the equipment and the research facilities and the labs all in one spot where we can work in the lab, know it works, step outside, and when it doesn't work, well, we know it worked here, let's figure out why it quit working in point B. And so it really makes it a real advantage to do that.
Although most people agree that mosquito control prevention is a noble aim, some environmentalists question aerial spraying. It's the chemicals from helicopters and trucks that some have concerns about. Chad Hansen is a spokesman for the Tallahassee Green Party. He argues that more people have died from the flu than from West Nile, and the government is making the emerging disease a bigger problem than it should be. He points to documents questioning the use of chemical sprays to kill mosquitoes. Then there are the personal problems that touch back home.
We get upset that they just come through, especially a neighborhood like this that's full of trees and full of mosquitoes. A lot of the time, like especially right now, where it may do some good in the short term, but in the long term it's making the matter worse.
Hansen argues that the chemicals from the spraying harms insects that would naturally kill mosquitoes. He says the government should let nature take care of the mosquito problem.
Researchers that say if you just let the wildlife be, 95% of mosquito population will be controlled through natural means. And so we try to deal with the 5% that aren't controlled, and we try to make that as few as possible, as little percentage as possible. But we can do nothing. We can do biological controls, dragonflies, bats, bat houses, mosquito fish.
In addition to the biological control measures, Hansen points to the need for more personal responsibility. He says despite the mosquitoes, he still enjoys biking, walking, and gardening. However, he remembers to protect himself and to take things in perspective.
We'll curse at the mosquitoes when they get really bad. I'm not an advocate for mosquitoes by any means, but I'll wear long clothes, put on some bug spray of sorts. Try to use the ones without the chemicals. But we'll just we have a head net that we wear if we're outside working and stuff. Our tolerance levels, I'm sure it's higher than most people's. Everybody we come here comes to visit, we say wear long clothes, wear long shirts, just dress up, because just prevent the mosquitoes from biting you. We don't have a problem with, they're still a nuisance, as we can tell, but but I mean, if it's all a matter of tolerance.
Mosquito control districts say that the goal is to avoid spraying by preventing larvae from developing. Although spraying is a current method used to control mosquitoes, mosquito control districts say that their ultimate goal is to prevent larvae from developing, and prevention starts with public knowledge. The Leon County Mosquito Control District reaches out to fourth graders through education programs such as this one.
How many species of mosquitoes are there in the United States?
Although the topic is about all mosquito-borne viruses, West Nile has become a major focus.
Mosquitoes transmit the West Nile disease to humans and pets and horses. We've actually been helped, and my job has been helped by the new West Nile issue, because it's in the media, people are familiar with it, they're concerned about it, and so they pay more attention when we have our public service announcements about mosquito control, and when I go to them with my message of prevention and protection.
After an introduction to the subject, the students watch a video presentation explaining how the virus is spread, the biology of mosquitoes, and then how they can play a role in mosquito prevention.
In this day and age, children are very attracted to any kind of video or something where they can sit down and that's not interactive. So we start out with the video, we try to make it funny, we try to make it educational at the same time. We used actors that were children in the video, to someone that the children could relate to. And then afterwards we have an activity book with puzzles and mazes and educational things where the children can color or circle the places where mosquitoes can grow, stuff like that, where it's fun for them, but they're actually learning at the same time.
The activity book includes puzzles, games, and a homework section where, with their parents, they're asked to go through a checklist and make sure the home is not a breeding ground for mosquitoes. An area of concern is standing water left in bird baths, old tires, and containers.
The best way to educate the parents, we've found, is actually to educate them through their children. By educating the children, getting them interested in mosquitoes and mosquito biology and mosquito prevention.
And to drive home the message of why it's important to dump standing water, each class is given a science project. Through the experiment, students are able to observe a mosquito from birth to adulthood.
I actually give them a mosquito life cycle kit, which has swamp water in it that we usually just get from a ditch somewhere around the county, and it has a mosquito larvae and mosquito pupae in it that will grow, and the larvae will turn into pupa, and the pupae will turn into adult mosquitoes over the course of a week. So they actually get to see the life cycle, they get to see what mosquito pupae and larvae look like, so if they see them around their house growing in a container, they'll be able to recognize those and dump out the standing water so they don't hatch out into adults. The biggest thing is that I want to impress upon them is that mosquitoes transmit diseases, that they don't want to get mosquito bites, they want to protect themselves from the mosquito bites.
Each Floridian also has a role to play in helping to prevent the spread of the West Nile virus. There's a number of steps we can take around the home. Never leave pools of water around the house. Mosquitoes can use the water as a breeding ground. Remember, it only takes a week for mosquitoes to reproduce. Stay indoors at dawn and dusk. That's when mosquitoes normally feed. If you're outdoors during feeding time, wear long pants and long sleeve shirts. And if possible, use repellent containing permethrin or DEET.
I believe that anytime you have an emerging disease, extra caution is in order so that you can make sure that you don't get surprised.
We have a lot to learn about West Nile. We don't quite have all of the pieces together with the ecology, with the natural history. Where does it overwinter? Which birds are important in amplification? Which mosquitoes are important in transmitting to people and other animals? So there's still a lot of work to be done in that regard. I think the take-home message, again, for people, can't reiterate enough, is that they really do need to be taking precautions against being bitten by mosquitoes. And in Florida, that could be many months of the year.
No matter how often you keep hearing those messages about avoiding mosquito bites, cleaning up containers with water, wearing long pants, long sleeves, or using insect repellent with DEET, don't ignore the message. Avoid mosquito bites.
Cases of West Nile virus are most prevalent from June to October and peak in late September, so be prepared. As mentioned earlier, there's a number of state and local agencies involved in mosquito control and prevention. Here's a complete list of the group. If you want to learn more about West Nile virus, you can find it online by searching for these titles.
That's our program. Thanks for watching, and join us again next time for Florida Crossroads.
If you have any questions or comments about this program, please email us at florida@wfsu.org or call us at area code 850-488-1281. More information about Florida Crossroads and programs in the series can be found on the web at www.wfsu.org.